Palermo. Here. Rowe. Bagley. Here. Harding. Johnson. Here. Melton. Here. Mr. President.
Here. Please stand for the pledge, and I'll provide today's remarks. I'd just like to recognize what a beautiful day it is today in the city of Omaha. In fact, this week there'll be several top 10 days of the year, we believe. But that is not the case in Florida. Right now, Hurricane Ian is suspected to take landfall here shortly. I know we all have friends in Florida. I have a friend who has personally been evacuated out of Tampa. So our thoughts and prayers are with them. And we hope for a speedy recovery of any storm they might experience. Thank you.
An affidavit of publication is on file for the pre-council and city council meeting, and a current copy of the Open Meeting Act is posted in a white binder on the east wall of legislative chambers.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Omaha City Council. We appreciate having you here today to talk about our many items on our agenda. I would encourage you to put your cell phones to vibrate.
Item 6, a request from Councilmember Melton to reconsider Resolution 2022-0915.
Ms. Melton, you're recognized.
Thank you, and I apologize for missing last week, but I decided that I didn't want to spread whatever I had to the rest of you, so I did stay home last Tuesday. But because I wasn't here, I did ask that this be reconsidered because I do think it's important enough. It's an important enough position in our city, and with everything that we're going to be doing, especially with the plan that we have with National League of Cities. And I think I've heard the argument from HR as to why they felt it was necessary. So I was hoping that we could just have this reconsidered. So I would move the vote.
There's a motion. Second. There's a second. Ms. Johnson, is your light on?
Yes.
You're recognized.
Point of clarification, Mr. President. What was the number of votes last meeting?
On this particular item?
Uh-huh.
Ms. Clerk. Ms. Johnson has asked what the vote count was on number 6 last week.
I believe it was 3-2.
Okay. Thank you.
No further lights. There's a motion and a second. Roll call.
Palermo.
Yes.
Rowe.
Yes.
Bagley.
Aye.
Harding.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Melton.
Yes.
Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0. Item 7, a resolution to approve an agreement with GovHR to assist the city in filling the position of the Director of Human Rights and Relations in the amount of $23,500.
There's a motion and a second. Is there a light coming on? Thought I saw some hands moving there, maybe not. No lights, there's a motion and a second. Roll call.
Palermo.
No.
Rowe.
Yes.
Bagley.
No.
Harding.
Yes.
Johnson.
No.
Melton.
Yes.
Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 4-3. Item 8, a resolution to approve the City of Omaha 2023 property tax request.
The vote on number 8 is today. No further lights. Is there a motion?
Second.
Motion and a second. Roll call.
Palermo.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley.
Yes.
Harding.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Melton.
Yes.
Mr. President.
Yes.
Item 8 is approved 7-0. Items 9 and 10 can be considered together for the Northeast Joint Use Facility 2, located southeast of 20th and Ogden Streets. Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval. Item 9, a resolution to approve the final plat. Item 10, a resolution to approve a large project special use permit to allow maintenance and service facilities over 10 acres in the GI district for this property.
Public hearing and vote on items 9 and 10 are today. Proponents, please.
Russell Falconer. I'm with RW Engineering and Surveying, 7525 North 101st Street, Omaha, Nebraska. I am here to represent City of Omaha, here to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any other proponents today? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed.
Second.
Motion and a second. Roll call.
Palermo. Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Melton. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0. Items 11 through 17 can be considered together for Iron Bluff, located southwest of 204th and F Streets. Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval. Items 11 through 14, ordinances to rezone this property from AG District to R4 District, R5 District, R7 District, and MU District. Item 15, an ordinance to approve a mixed-use district development agreement. Item 16, a resolution to approve the final plat. Item 17, a resolution to approve the subdivision agreement.
Public hearing and vote on items 11 through 17 are today. Proponents, please.
Good afternoon, Mr. Council President and council members. Jim Bouger, 10250 Regency Circle, Suite 300, here on behalf of the proponent, 10th Avenue Freeze-Out, which is the developer of the Iron Bluff subdivision. This is located at 204th and F Streets. It's a mixed-use development, and we are here today to have the zoning approved, the subdivision agreement approved, plat approved, and the mixed-use agreement approved. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have regarding the development.
10th Avenue Freeze Out, so Bruce Springsteen fans, huh?
It is, yes.
All right.
I have a client that's a fan.
Thanks. Any other proponents on these items? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing's closed. There's a motion and a second. Roll call.
Palermo. Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Melton. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0. Item 18, to consider a Class I liquor license for Kobe Steakhouse of Japan and Sushi Bar located at 16801 Burke Street.
Public hearing and vote on number 18 is today. Proponents, please.
Aaron Smeals, Smith, Pauley, Slusky, and Rogers Law, 3555 Farnham Street, Suite 1000, on behalf of Kaish Management, here to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any other proponents today? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing's closed. Roll call.
Palermo. Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Melton. Mr. President.
Yes.
Item 18 is approved, 7-0. Consent agenda. Any member of the City Council may cause any item placed on the consent agenda to be removed. Items removed from the consent agenda shall be taken up by the City Council immediately following the consent agenda in the order in which they were removed, unless otherwise provided by the City Council Rules of Order.
The public hearings on agenda items 19 through 25 were held on September 20th. There's a motion and a second with no further lights. Roll call.
Palermo. Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Melton. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0.
There's been a request to remove items 31, 34 through 37, and 39 from the consent agenda today. So first, we'll start with public hearings on agenda items 26 through 30, number 32, number 33, and number 38 today. If you wish to address the City Council regarding these items, please come to the microphone, indicate the agenda item number you wish to address, identify yourself by name, address, and who you represent, and if you are a proponent or an opponent. Seeing none on these items, public hearing is closed.
Move the approval of 26 through 30, 32, 33, and 38.
Motion and a second. Roll call.
Palermo. Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Melton. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0. Item 31, a resolution to approve the agreement with Ames Industrial Park, LLC, in the amount of $200,400.
The public hearing and vote on number 31 is today. Proponents, please.
Good afternoon, Kelly Johnson Dorsey with the Omaha Planning Department. Agenda item number 30 today is agreement in support of the consolidated plan amendment that was just passed in item number 30. We'll let the developer here talk about the project, and we are here to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. Other proponents? This is number 31.
My name is Justin Moore with Spencer Management, and we're a proponent of the following project.
Thank you. And your address, please?
2821 Caldwell, Omaha, Nebraska 68131.
Thanks. And here to answer questions?
Yes.
All right, thank you. Any other proponents today? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing's closed. Ms. Johnson, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Hi, Joshua. How are you today?
I'm doing fine, and you?
Good.
All right.
Hey, I have just a few questions.
Yes, ma'am.
The first one is, who is Ames Industrial Park? Who are the owners?
Ames Industrial Park is basically a developer, and they would basically partner with Spencer Management for the general contracting work.
And who's the developer?
Ames Industrial Park.
Okay. All right. And do you have a site plan for this?
Yes, ma'am, I do.
Okay. Can we see it on the screen here?
Well, it was submitted with our application, all of our plans for the project. I didn't bring it with me, but it was submitted with our CDBG application.
Does anyone in the planning department have the site plan that we could see?
Alyssa Solachik, Omaha Planning Department. I don't have the site plan with me, but I could certainly provide it, and we can ask questions about what's been proposed within that plan as well.
So when would you be able to provide it?
We might have it, I think it's within the agreement itself. I don't have that on me.
So can we bring it up on the screen for the community to see? All right, while she's looking for that, Joshua, is there a construction schedule at all?
Yes, that would be in our application also.
Okay. And is there a construction, what's your start date for the construction?
Our start date as of now would be October 24th.
Okay. And the completion?
Completion would be, we had December 15th.
Of this year?
Of 22. Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
Wow. You're going to be working hard.
Yeah, we got pretty much everything pretty much lined up, so we're just ready to go.
How will you advertise the job openings? Because I noticed that there will be at least 4 job creations.
Yes, so the advertisement went out, I think yesterday. We advertised to all Section 3 contractors, WMBE, DBE, basically the same process that we went through with our Phase 1. Because we did a Phase 1 to this project to an existing building, and we went through the bidding process, so we just basically did it again to notify all Tier 1, Tier 2 contractors.
Okay. And when did you start the process of your development with the city planning department?
For Phase 1?
Uh-huh.
I would say April of 2020.
2020, April 2020?
2020.
Okay. All right, and when were you advised to reach out to your city council representative?
Advised to reach out to who again?
To your city council representative.
I would say maybe about 2 weeks ago.
This question is for the planning department. refresh, remind me or freshen, give me more information about the process of when you're going through a development process and then you go through the various steps. You were, or at least I was told that the city, the city representative would be notified. At what junction should they be notified?
Melissa Solachik, Omaha Planning Department. Couple of items. First, I thought the site plan was in this document. It is not, so it would have been provided with the application, I believe, and so I'll look at the application materials and provide that. I just don't have it available to me at the time, so I apologize for that.
So is that normal for you not to provide a site plan?
No, a site plan should be, I don't have a copy of it.
Well, I got it on my phone. If that, I don't know if that'll help. I can show you a site plan on my
You
phone.
can probably show it there.
Let's do that.
All right.
I guess my question is that normal for city planning not to provide a site plan when one was provided by the developer?
It should have been provided.
Oh, okay. It was just an oversight, right?
Correct.
And when should have the city council representative been notified that this development was taking place?
Is that?
Yeah, if you want to speak to that.
So if I can, Dave Fanslaw, City Planning. The TIF plan was approved somewhere towards the end of 2019. And to answer your general question, we always encourage people to meet with their city council representative at the onset of projects.
You're right.
So
Yeah.
the onset of this project would have been in 2019?
Yeah, probably sometime in 19.
Thank you.
You said what? Oh, okay, gotcha. Thank you, brother.
Sorry, here is where.
So basically, this is the site plan, and can I point? Okay. So this will be the building that we're proposing for today, and this will be the existing building, which is right here, which would have been our phase 1.
Okay. All right, thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Joshua and I had an opportunity to meet each other about 2-3 days ago, so without that meeting, I would not have been able to even talk about this development, although the city council staff had received numerous questions in the community about what was going on in the area. But to no avail, we weren't able to get any answers. But me and Joshua talked a couple of days ago. That was very refreshing. And so now I have a pretty good, solid understanding about what's going on with the development. Welcome it, and I'm in full support of this. I move that we go ahead and approve the resolution.
Thank you.
Thank you. Or the ordinance, I should say.
I'll second. Mr. Harding, you're recognized.
Just real quickly, Justin, thank you for your investment, and I believe you said this was phase 2.
Yes, sir.
So your continued investment in the area, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. There's a motion and a second. No further lights. Roll call.
Palermo. Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Melton. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0. One public hearing can be held for items 34 through 37, resolutions to approve reappointments to the Public Art Commission and an appointment to the Library Board.
The public hearing and vote on numbers 34, 35, 36, and 37 are today, which are all appointments. I know we have some by Zoom and perhaps some here in person. Proponents, please.
Katie Swanson, Omaha Parks, Recreation, and Public Property Department. I'm here to answer any questions about the Public Art Commission reappointments.
Great, thank you. Any other proponents in the audience here? Seeing none, any opponents? Seeing none, public hearing's closed. I'll just note that Mr. Carlson is by Zoom, who is an appointment to the Public Art Commission, and I believe Mr. Varas is calling in as we speak. Ms. Johnson, Ms. Johnson, you're recognized.
Thank you. I'm sorry, what's your name again?
Katie Swanson.
Ms. Swanson, how are you today?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Good. Can you talk a little bit about the Public Art Commission, its purpose, its goal, and how many members you might have on that board?
Absolutely. So the Public Art Commission, it is a mayor-appointed commission. They make recommendations on artwork donated to or acquired by the city. They are an advisory committee to other city boards in all matters regarding visual art and aesthetics. So basically, any piece of art that is on public property, city-owned property, is under the jurisdiction of the Public Art Commission for recommendations. There are 9 members of the Public Art Commission. Currently, not including the 3 who are up for reappointment today, we have 3 sitting members plus the 3 today, and then 3 vacancies right now. We hold meetings monthly, every second Wednesday at the Dewey Recreation Center at Dewey Park. Let's see. Is that you have any?
And how often are they in a meeting?
It's every month, second Wednesday of every month.
Second Wednesday of each month?
Second Wednesday of every month, yes. So the next meeting will be October 12th.
And you mentioned there were 4 vacancies?
Currently 3 vacancies.
Okay. So you have 3 vacancies. What efforts have been made to fill those?
The Public Art Commission has reached out to artists in the city to try to fill those vacancies, but ultimately it's up to the Parks Department is not involved with the actual appointments. That's the mayor's office.
Okay, is there anyone in the mayor's office that can answer the question regarding the outreach to fill these vacancies? Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. President. Thomas Warren, Chief of Staff, Mayor's Office, 1819 Farnham. I'm sorry, can you repeat your question?
Oh, I was looking to see what outreach has been done to fill these vacancies on this committee.
And you're talking about the Public Arts Commission?
Yes.
Okay. Typically, the positions are always open and available on the website. Anyone who may be interested in pursuing an appointment to any City of Omaha Board or Commission, they can inquire. They can look at the description of the board. They can look at the duties, the roles, and responsibilities. So these are voluntary positions. Typically, it's kind of word of mouth within the arts community in terms of who may be interested in serving on these boards and or commissions, specifically with public art. Those who are artists or enthusiasts may be interested as well. But I can't say that there's an aggressive outreach or recruitment effort for these positions.
So if I know somebody that could possibly be interested in that, would I send them your way or go on the website to fill out the application?
Sure, either one. You may go to the website. Again, those positions, the descriptions are available, the applications are available. They may contact the mayor's office, Carrie Murphy, who facilitates the appointments to these boards and commissions. Anyone who may be interested can inquire.
And what's the turnaround time for a response if they put in an application?
It depends. It depends on the commission, the board. It depends on the vacancy, the term, if there's a current vacancy, or typically within 30 days. they will be notified regarding the status of their application.
So in this example here, where we're looking for the Public Art Commission, what would be the turnaround time for that response?
I believe these are reappointments.
I'm saying you have some vacancies, so if someone were to submit an application to be considered, what is the expected turnaround time for them to
I
follow up?
imagine typically about 30 days.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that.
You bet.
All right, the next, so are we doing one at a time, or?
We had a public hearing on all 4 of these items. I might suggest we take one vote on the Public Art Commission and one vote on the library.
Okay.
And I would also note, we do have Mr. Varus by Zoom now, I think on the phone here, who is the library board appointment, if there's questions for him. And I think, Ms. Palachek, are you in the audience here? Maybe not. Okay, go ahead.
For Mr. Vargas, when I looked at, is he on the Zoom call?
Yes, I think he's by phone here. We'll try to get him off mute here in a minute if you have questions for him.
Yeah, when I looked at his application or the document here, let's see here.
Albert, did that work for you on the phone there?
Yes, it took me a second just to get in, and I couldn't hear if there was a question.
Great, thanks for being with us. Just your name and address, please.
My full name is Alberto Varas. My address is 5017 North 126th Street, 68164.
Great, thanks. Ms. Johnson.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Vargas, how are you today?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you?
Good.
Please forgive me for not being able to be there in person. I had another appointment leading up to currently. I'm trying to do 2 things at once, so I'm glad I'm able to join by phone. Thanks for making that an option.
Well, I'm definitely glad that you are very much interested in this appointment to the library board. Tell me a little bit about your experience with the library.
Yeah, from my experience with the library ranges from taking my kids and checking out books and doing my best to turn them in on time. And some years ago, I became pretty intimately familiar with the library through a program that I used to help run with a nonprofit that was DOTComm. That was a resource with the library that the library made available. And at that time is when I really became familiar with the library, not only what it offers internally inside the brick and mortar, but also the extension into households through some of the different resources that are available through the library that you can access through the library card.
And are you guilty, like many of us, in terms of being late on returning your books?
We do our best, and both my kids enjoy reading, and sometimes they do hold on to the books a little bit longer than I would like, but the library seems to always be very, very kind.
All right. Well, thank you. It was definitely a pleasure to hear your voice over the mic, and thank you for your time today.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for the consideration.
All right, and if we could move on to Christian Williams.
Which item are you referring to?
I'm looking at this document in my hand. It says, as the request of the mayor, attached for your consideration is a resolution for the appointment of Albert Varas to the library board to replace Christian Williams. You're right, absolutely. But when I'm looking at this application, this is the one that I'm looking at that does not have a resume attached to it. Well, when I printed off the document here, so help me out with looking at the resume here.
Number 37 you're referring to?
Let's see here. Let's see here. Kennedy, Carlson, Ploshuk, and Vargas. Oh, okay. Thank you. It must have didn't print off on the printer. Sorry about that. I have it now. Appreciate that. All right, moving on to the Christian, I'm not saying the name correctly, Polishek?
Kristen Polacek, I think.
Polacek? Is she available?
She is currently teaching a class. She was going to try to hop on at 3 o'clock if, you know,
If we were still on board?
What?
If
Yeah,
we were still
yes.
on board? All right, so she's in class? Okay. All right, you are responsible for all of the appointments, is that correct?
I am the staff member from the Parks Department who facilitates the Public Art Commission meetings.
Okay.
So I am not directly involved with the appointments and reappointments.
Okay. Cool. All right, well, thank you for your time.
Yep. I am able to vouch for the 3 Public Art Commission members, so if you have questions.
Thank you.
Okay.
I'm finished. Thanks.
Okay. Mr. Bagley, you're recognized.
Thanks, Mr. President. I wanted to thank Albert for zooming in. Is he gone now?
I still by phone.
Is he okay? Well, I appreciate you. I read your resume, and it looks like you've done a lot of good things in the community. So I know, as was confirmed by our city attorney, there's 41 boards that the mayor appoints people to their positions of public service. So we take time to look through the resumes, and I want to just thank, on behalf of myself and my constituents, the folks that have stepped up today. And we go through this process. It's about public service, and that's what the people here are doing today. So Albert and the rest of the folks on our agenda, I appreciate you stepping up. And if we had questions, we had asked them, but with Albert today, Alberto, I beg your pardon, I appreciate you taking the time to zoom in today, and I wish you nothing but the best serving our community and the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Palermo, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Varas, are you there?
Oh, Barry.
We'll get him off. Get you off mute here again.
Yeah, there's no G in there.
He's on the phone now.
Well, that's all right. You can stay on mute. There was somebody here to vouch for the reappointments, and certainly, okay.
I'm unmuted.
Okay, great. I didn't want you to say later on I didn't say this, so I'm glad you recognized. There was somebody here to vouch for the reappointments of 34, 35, 36, and I'm just here to say that as far as 37 goes, Mr. Varas, that I can certainly speak for you with your work in the community. To me, seeing on the agenda, especially today, with the appointment that you're going to step into for the library board, I don't have to tell you all the news media coverage that has certainly come along with the library board as late. But I know you're definitely willing and able to step up and into this role. I wish you the best of luck, and I'm really happy that you took on this appointment. So I will definitely vouch for you and wish you well. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Melton, you're recognized.
I see that. Thank you, Mr. Varas. I see that Mr. Carlson, Robert Carlson, is on Zoom, and I just wanted to also thank him since I know Alberto was on the phone, but Mr. Carlson, thank you for your service to the Arts Commission, and I appreciate you taking the time to zoom in as well. It doesn't appear that we had any questions for you, but I wanted to recognize that you took the time to zoom in. So thank you very much. And if there's no other lights, can we move to approve 34 through 36, because those are the art commissions?
Sure.
Second.
All right.
Motion and a second. Roll call.
Palermo.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Melton. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0.
And is there a motion on number 37? Motion and a second, roll call.
Palermo. Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Melton. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0. Item 39, a resolution to approve the amendment to the agreement with the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development in the amount of $182,100.
Public hearing and vote on number 39 is today. Proponents, please.
Good afternoon. Gerald Kuhn, Human Rights and Relations Department, City of Omaha.
Thank you. Any other proponents today? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed. Mr. Harding, you're recognized.
Sorry. Could you explain, just for the public, how the reimbursement process works and why this would be on their agenda?
Yes. So the Human Rights and Relations Department, investigative division, we investigate all allegations of discrimination as it pertains to public accommodation, which is through the City of Omaha, housing, which is through HUD, and EEOC, which is through the EEOC. HUD reimburses us for the cases that we investigate. This is just a routine contract update for the investigations that the cases that we will investigate in 2022, 2023.
Okay. I just want to make sure that was clear.
All right.
Thank you.
No problem.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Thank you. Ms. Johnson, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. How are you today? Good. Can you tell me about the number of opportunities that you are able to provide training sessions and things like that throughout the community?
As it pertains to housing and housing complaints. So when we investigate a housing complaint, we tend to put training at the end of in all conciliations as it pertains to the cases that we investigate. So it really is case specific, and we have quarterly trainings for those landlords or homeowners that have to go through this training, go through the process.
So it's a case-by-case basis?
Yes.
So at the end of each case, you provide training to whomever you're,
Yes, it will be put into, if there's a cause finding, then we will recommend training for that case, for that landlord. Yes.
So are we doing pretty good on?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. We investigate usually around 36 to 40 cases a year. And then we provide quarterly training for those landlords.
Okay, and are there other training other than in housing where you provide, you have other cases outside of housing, is that correct?
Yes, through the EEOC, through employment, we will go out and train employers about just employment rights, employee rights, for sexual harassment, things of that nature for those employers.
And about how many did you do last year or this year?
We did about, in 2022 thus far, we have done about, I'd say 8 trainings in the community. Yes.
So has there been any successful cases that were won, or, what's the turnout rate?
Of those cases, I don't have those numbers in front of me of how many cases went cause and we found cause discrimination versus non-cause, but there have been some. And the majority of our cases are no cause, so no cause finding, which means that we did not find any that discrimination took place.
So as a whole, the City of Omaha is doing pretty good in terms of having an even playing field in terms of housing and other components where there may be some discrimination, possible discrimination?
Yes, and on a biannual basis, I will seek out the partnership of Fair Housing Nebraska and Iowa Fair Housing Services, and we will audit the City of Omaha landlords to see if discrimination is taking place.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. No further lights. Is there a motion? Motion and a second. Roll call.
Palermo. Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Melton. Mr. President.
Yes.
Item 39 is approved, 7-0. Item 40, a resolution to approve a real estate purchase agreement with 75 North Revitalization Corporation for the sale of 6 city-owned parcels of property. Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval. B is amendment of the whole requested by the Planning Department.
This item was postponed from September 20th. I'll note for council members that the corrected paperwork is now 40B, which is an amendment of the whole. Ms. Johnson, you're recognized.
Hi, Sydney, how are you?
Good afternoon. Hello,
Good.
Councilwoman Johnson.
Just wanted to compliment you on the efforts that you're making.
Thank you.
there at 75 North there on the corner of 30th and Parker, leading toward Lake Street, and doing an outstanding job.
Thank you.
And then now you're extending the additional workforce development housing, which we're discussing today. So just wanted to recognize your efforts and your staff efforts.
Yes, thank you, Councilwoman Johnson and council members for this opportunity. This is an extension of really a partnership that 75 North already has with the City of Omaha. We're expending large home funds and urban homestead funds allocation received from the City of Omaha to construct 7 single-family homes that will sell soon. Right now, this is kind of an extension of that, though this program does not have home funds in the capital stack. We still view this as a partnership with the City of Omaha and other organizations that allow for the construction of single-family homes to both that's considered affordable and workforce.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
Motion to approve.
Oh, thank you.
And Sydney, just for the record, your name and address, please.
Yes, Sydney Franklin, 75 North, 2112 North 30th Street, Suite 200 in Omaha.
Great, thank you. There was a motion and a second. No further lights, which is the amendment of the whole 40B, right? Yes. All right, roll call.
Palermo. Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Melton. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion
Thank you.
passed 7-0.
Thanks.
Item 41, a resolution to approve the real estate purchase agreement with Dana Murray for the sale of 2 city-owned parcels of property located at 2506 and 2510 North 24th Street in the amount of $415,000. Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval. B is communications and support. C is amendment of the whole requested by the Planning Department.
This item was also postponed from the September 20th meeting, and the vote is today. As the clerk noted, 41C is the amendment of the whole with the proper paperwork. Ms. Johnson, you're recognized.
Well, thank you, Mr. President. Appreciate that. State your name and address,
Good afternoon.
please.
Dana Murray, 2510 North 24th Street.
Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Sorry for the delay last week, but do want to compliment you on the new resurrection of the former Love Jazz and wish you many blessings for your new venture. And I move that this be accepted.
Thank you very much.
And I'll second the amendment of the whole C.
41C, a motion and a second. No further lights. Roll call.
Palermo.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Melton. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0.
Thanks.
Item 42, a resolution to authorize the Finance Department to pay an amount of $415,000 from the city's allotment of ARPA funds fiscal year 2022 to the Now Initiative.
This is a related item that was also postponed from September 20th, and the vote is today.
I move that this be accepted.
I'll second. Roll call.
Palermo.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Melton. Mr. President.
Yes.
Item 42 is approved, 7-0. Items 43 through 47 can be considered together. Resolutions to approve professional services agreement for residential snowplow inspections for the 2022-2023 winter season in the amount of $60,000 each.
Items 43 through 47 were postponed from the September 20th meeting, and the vote is today. Mr. Palermo, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. I also want to thank Public Works for answering all the questions I had along the way. Mr. Rouser, Director Stubbe. Obviously, we find ourselves here again today with these professional service agreements in front of us. So to recap, and we laid this over for 2 weeks based on the fact that we weren't all here. And if you're doing the math at home, I certainly could have made a motion to move it forward, and it would have failed the last 2 weeks, but I'm a better sportsman than that. And not only that, I believe my colleagues remember their campaign promises they made to save the city money, and I'm certainly bringing this in front of you today. So with that, as I brought up a couple weeks ago, I mentioned the fact that, well, actually, I gave a copy to Mr. Rouser, who put on the overhead projector of the job descriptions directly verbatim, word for word, that we have as a city that we require our city employees to do. And in these job descriptions, it was certainly to manage the contractors. Not just the foreman 3s, but the foreman 2s and the foreman 1s. And I certainly won't sit here and say that it's not a difficult job during the 24 operation that we are involved in snow removal services here in the city of Omaha. But also remind you, it didn't just start snowing in the city of Omaha, and we've had to clear the streets for a long, long time. And we did it before without these professional service agreements. I'll also remind you that this was a 6-0 vote of the contractors that we had in front of us. That means we had an agenda item in front of us, and I believe it would have been 7-0, but there was only 6 of us, that listed out the contractors for residential snow plow removal, that we know what that entails. And there was no questions, there was no issues. It was a 6-0 vote to approve the contractors for residential snow service. So for me, we know how this works. If there's problems on the agenda, if there's questions for different departments, this is where we air them, and it didn't happen. That means we believe in them contractors that we hired, that given the year, we're gonna pay large sums of money to make sure our residential streets for the residents of Omaha are taken care of. Nobody voiced a problem with the contractors. So then we find ourselves moving on with the professional service agreement. And what this is certainly not to watch our city employees. Let me get everybody up to date on the city employees as well. Our HR worked very, very hard to fill the spots we've been lacking for years within the street department, specifically AEO1s, which is Automotive Equipment Operator 1, which is kind of the entry level for the city of Omaha. This is the person that not only fills your chuck holes or whatever various jobs they would do in the summer, but they're also the person that rides in the truck, the big orange truck in the winter. These spots have now been filled, and that hasn't happened for a long time. But besides AEO1s, you have AEO2s, you have MR2s, which is maintenance repair, and you have the AEO3s. And if you're really busy, because again, I know the 24 operation of snow removal is a lot, you can also call in the Parks Department. You could call in the Sewer Department. You could call in the Traffic Department. And I'm sure there's even more people you could call in if you needed to help the city with the level of service that we all not only want, but we have to have. This is a level of service that we require to have done for us. So, as a recap, we have foremans that in their job description, they're getting paid to do this. A few years back, they actually got a increase in their wages. It was pretty significant on the amount they received, and we were told that it was for the extra job duties that would be assigned to them. So, and not to mention, the foremans, as we know, don't have the voids within them ranks or openings that these other positions have, which means it's probably a pretty desirable job with a decent paycheck. These are the people, these foremans, that not only can manage the AO1s, 2s, MR2s, and 3s, they can also manage the contractors. And you know why? Because we talk about how we've advanced in this world with all the latest and greatest equipment, and every one of these contractors are required to have GPS in their truck. So it makes it even easier. They don't need to leave their office to grab a route sheet and drive over this certain area and spend 10 or 15 minutes trying to find them. They know exactly where they are. And not only that, there's so much intermingling between the secondary routes, the major routes, and the residentials, that there's no way our city employees who, by all means, are doing everything they can do with what they have, and they're doing a really good job, and morale, I believe, since I've been on the council, is at an all-time high. The best they can do to help out, that if they make a turn at an intersection or have to turn out on a residential area, that if they see a problem, they can help out very easily. So here we are, professional service agreements in front of us, and hopefully the clerk can record that for me, so I'll say it again next year, depending on how this goes, and I won't have to say it again. But so what I did, because we've had time, I did have a chance to call every single contractor that was awarded a residential. Well, I will say I talked to almost all of them. Some I did have to leave messages with. A couple I even talked to late today, and I asked them. I said, hey, you know, congrats on getting this residential snowplow contract. Don't feel bad, but I hope we don't need you, because keep in mind, we only call them out when it hits a certain level of inches of snow that we need them. And we know last year we didn't need them very much. And I said, off the record, I'm going to ask you a question, because we have something on our agenda item that has to do with these agreements, and it has to do with somebody watching the work you're doing. So what do you know about these inspectors that we're going to vote on today? And I quickly jotted down some of the responses, and they were fair. I thought they were fair. One was, I didn't know we had inspectors watching over us. So we have contractors in the area that are plowing snow, not only for the residents, but for us, for the city, because we're paying the bill. And they didn't know there was inspectors out there. Another one said, I don't need an intern teaching me how to plow. Another one said, I think the contractors do a good job, but it depends on what contractor we get, because I believe different contractors do not get equal treatment, which we know there's different contractors. Contractors have certain areas they're required to plow. These professional service agreements have them designated in areas to watch. So what I took from that was the fact that depending on which person you had watching you as a contractor, maybe they had different metrics or parameters that they were looking for. And I found that disturbing, because if we're holding our contractors at a certain level of service that we demand, and we're paying this professional service agreement for people to watch them, we'd certainly want it marked the same, and it doesn't appear it is. One said, I really hate plowing. How do I get this job? Well, I don't know. I guess I can figure out how to get him in touch with the bid for the professional service agreement. Another one said, I've been plowing 40 years. I don't need anybody expecting my work. Another one said, I think they were good. Numerous contractors said, the only people I ever see out there are city employees. And if it were my business, why wouldn't I have a city employee out here not only helping, but watching me? And this is the problem I have. It just didn't start snowing. We have been dealing with snow since the beginning of this city. And I know the lane miles have increased. Employees are different. I know responsibilities are different. I know Public Works used to do residential areas. I know because Director Stubbe will remind me, residents want their snow removed now. And that's why we have contractors in these residential areas. The bottom line is, that last person is exactly right. We're paying city employees to work the 12-hour shift. And sometimes, if you don't know, they work 2-3 weeks in a row until the streets are clear. And you know what they do after they clear your street? The main drags and them secondaries, which would be kind of high traffic, churches, schools, you know what they do after that? They go back into the residential areas. And with the freeze thaw we have, it is highly unlikely that they're not going to have to drop their plow and help out anyway. And I don't know that the inspectors, other than calling the contractor back out, can provide this level of service. And I keep saying level of service because this is not Vinnie Palermo saying, we don't care about your roads, and if you don't approve this today, complaints are going to go way up, and snow service is going to be terrible in the city. That is exactly not true. Whether we approve this today, I will guarantee you, and no elected official ever makes a guarantee, I will guarantee you we'll have complaints. But if we don't approve this today, I will guarantee you we have complaints. So the reason I'm against these professional service agreements are mainly is because it's not going to solve the problem of complaints. There is no way around it unless it does not snow. And then it doesn't matter. But we know on the 4-year rolling average, we got a 5-year, but I'd like to take out last year because that didn't count as much. But on the 4-year rolling average, we've spent $193,000. Is it a lot? I don't know. Sure, add it up every year because I don't see this going away. And I'm certainly not going to stop talking about it. So we know these agreements have been a problem in the past, not just in the winter, but in the summer, where we know different districts have these agreements we have in place. They have found issues that contractors had an issue and the inspector missed it as well. You're never going to get away from that. But the bottom line is until and to me, this is what I believe. This is no offense to those professional service agreements here, but I think it's a pat on the back deal. I think it's a way to keep certain employees in their position in the summer for these agreements that we approve, and in the winter for these agreements that we approve. And them deals have to be done because they are not necessary. We're going to get complaints either way. And most importantly, because I said it before, I'll say it again, I believe in our city employees. And I know at the end of the day, regardless of what complaints are found, we as a city with our city employees will be out fixing your residential roads properly. End of story, because that's what we're required to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Begley, you're recognized.
Thanks, Mr. President. Austin, can you come down for a minute, please?
Austin Rouser, Public Works.
Good afternoon, Austin. Good to see you as always. The 5 inspectors before us here today, well, let me back up. The contractors we have going in the residential neighborhoods, as was mentioned earlier by Councilman Palermo, there's GPS in those contractors' vehicles, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Do these 5 inspectors have GPS in their vehicles?
I believe some do. I don't know that they all do.
Okay, and the contractors that we have that go in that do city personnel track where they're working and plowing and removing snow?
As far as the GPS goes, we don't actively manage that a lot. We use that in our reporting. Obviously, we have a public website that shows where all the city plows are. So that's one way that's used. The other way is when we do investigative work. If we get a complaint about somebody speeding or something like that, we use it for that.
Okay, and these 5, again, the ones on our agenda today, they don't have GPS, so we don't have anywhere to know, where they've been or where they've gone like we do our trucks and others.
Councilman, at one point in time, I know we put the GPS units in the inspectors. I'm not sure what the current state of that is.
Okay.
Haven't been out of the operation for a couple of years. I don't exactly know the answer
No
to that.
problem. I appreciate you trying to help me understand. And as was mentioned earlier, the foremen support the snow removal, and then is there somebody that can support the foreman within the city employees? Is there construction inspectors?
We do have construction inspectors, and I think that I think that answers one of the comments made by Councilman Palermo. We do have, and I mentioned this before, we have construction inspectors that work for the city that go out and supplement the operation as well. So I think in an area where if a contractor only sees city employees, he's probably being inspected by city employees.
Okay, and I won't run down again what Councilman Palermo said. There's different parts of city departments that can help when there's a snow, that you guys rely on.
That's correct.
City
Yep.
employees, and as we mentioned in last week's meeting, HR, they had, through the collective bargaining process, had filled, there was dozens of openings, and that's down to, I can count on my maybe both hands, it's less than that. So at least I know you're happy that there's a full army of men and women that do great work for the city. They got a new contractor being fairly compensated, and you're smiling up there, so I know.
I'm extremely happy.
This is
We've
music.
been aggressive for years, and
I know.
it's a long time coming.
No, and I want to make sure my remarks reflected. I appreciate the work that you do and the city employees do, but in respect to these 5 contractors, I'm not going to support this today for the reasons I discussed, but I want to thank you again and the city employees for the work, and hopefully we don't need any of the contractors. That it's not going to snow, but I think we're probably going to get clobbered this year. I hope I'm wrong, but thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Harding, you're recognized.
Austin, if you wouldn't mind, just stay there for a second. I have a couple things that I think you probably need to verify for me. First, I want to say I agree with both Mr. Palermo and Mr. Bagley. This is nothing against our city employees. I think our city employees do a fantastic job, and I've had the pleasure and to ride along with in a snow event, and it's amazing work that they do for the city. But I kind of look at this as, it's pretty standard procedure, and especially like in the construction industry, and you just mentioned maybe a little bit of that you hire an owner's representative. And I really look at this as really kind of that owner's representative for this kind of a function. Would you kind of agree that that's kind of analogous to what I'm talking about?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. And then you mentioned on the GPS too. So a lot of times, the GPS might show that they've gone down the street, but it doesn't show what they did when they went down the street.
That's correct.
And I think that's when, why if some of these complaints come in, whether or not, it's just not a matter or function of, following GPS and seeing if they've been through the route. It's also understanding what they did while they were on that route, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And then again, it was touched on. One of the reasons we even have the residential contractors is really to provide that level of service of getting into the neighborhoods, because that's not the priority for the city on the snow removal. It's to get the main arterials open and all those secondary arterials, and then they would, in the past, then they would get into the neighborhood. So by hiring these contractors, getting them into the neighborhoods to get a level of service of initial service done. Obviously, if at some point that days after the event, there might be a city truck that goes down your street as well too, but that's to kind of mop up some of the other work as well.
It's really to spread, to get some material down to help with melting, because when the city trucks come in after the fact, one of the huge complaints that we get is, I've shoveled my driveway out 3 times, and now you've come back 3 days later and plowed it closed again. So we have an expectation, and what these inspectors help us to achieve is that curb-to-curb level of service, so that we're not having to drop that blade later on. So we're going back and only spreading salt at that point in time without pushing a bunch of snow around.
Okay, thanks for that clarification.
Thank you. Ms. Melton, you're recognized.
And I know we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It looks like 5 different contractors. So are they assigned different quadrants of the city?
They're typically matched up with contractors. So one firm, depending on size, they might have 1 contractor, or they might have 2 contractors that they watch. They typically, which is spread out toward regionally.
And how many people, how many employees would you need to hire to do this job if we didn't have the contractors?
We get about 25 people per shift that come in on these professional service agreements. So if you double that to 2 shifts, it's 50 people roughly that come in.
So it's 25 people per shift?
Correct.
And typically 2 shifts, so that's 50 people?
Correct.
And if you were to hire, you'd have to hire 50 additional people, but you only need them for just during snow removal times.
Correct.
So that would cost us, I mean, if you hired 50 people, would you say the average cost with benefits and everything else for somebody, I mean, you're looking at $100,000 a person?
Right, correct.
Okay. So we're saving quite a bit of money by using contractors and only paying them when it snows.
In my opinion, yes.
Because that's what I'm looking at, is the bottom line is we're saving money by only using people when we need them and only paying them when they actually have to do the work. Because last year, what did you say we spent last year?
Just less than $50,000.
Less than $50,000. But if you don't know what the snow is going to be, you'd have to hire a whole bunch of people, and then we may not even get any snow. So, and you have to pay those people no matter what once they're hired onto the city. So I think that we get more bang for our buck by doing it this way, and we can also save a bunch of money when we don't have a lot of snow. So I think I look at this and see that this saves the city quite a bit of money by using these contractors just when we need them. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Palermo.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, Mr. Rouser, as you know, I wasn't going to call you down, but since you're here, we definitely need some clarification, because I think we've got away from what we actually have in front of us. And now the last spin I heard was hiring 50 people when it's apples to oranges. We're not hiring 50 people to operate a snow truck that we have to give wages and benefits to that are actually going to have a snow plow. What we have in front of us is a professional service agreement. So again, you can say that because of this we're saving money, but the truth is we're wasting money because they are not needed, is the point. We don't need to hire 50 people to watch the contractors that was approved 6-0. And I'm getting to the question. Thanks for hanging with me. That is not the spin. That has nothing to do with what's going on here. We do not have to hire 50 people. We have already approved contractors that were vetted through the Public Works Department to take care of this bid that we approved with no questions asked, meaning we believe they can do the job. So that is not what's going on here about hiring 50 people. As a matter of fact, it's just the opposite. We have filled 50 positions within the Public Works Department that were budgeted for, that should have been filled all along, that can operate a truck, that do have a plow and a sander with them. Because at the end of the day, as I've said this before, I'm the only one in here that's actually drove a plow truck. So I know when your street actually gets to the quality and level of service you want, it's from that city employee. It's not from the contractor. They're pickup trucks with a snow blade. And heaven forbid it's 8 inches, or heaven forbid it's ice. Because then we're gonna go exactly into what you first said when you came up to the podium, which is a majority of the complaints arise from windrows being pushed into driveways. Here's my question. If we approve this professional service agreement, will that change them inspectors going out and seeing a windrow pushed in somebody's private driveway?
No.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. No further lights? There's a motion and a second. Mr. Brill, your light is on.
I'm sorry I didn't jump in quick enough for Austin, but on the to the point of the foreman, on a big snow event, are they plowing snow?
Foremen do not.
They do not.
No.
So they are available for supervision.
They supervise constantly. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Mr. Bagley.
Quick question, Austin, and I promise this is the last one. Just so I'm clear on what we talked about here, 43 through 47 is 5 contractors that are not city employees, correct?
Correct.
And it's $60,000 apiece, correct?
Correct.
Fuzzy math, help me out. 60,000 times 5 is 300,000.
Correct.
And that's not for city employees. That is for contractors of these 5 contracts, correct?
For consultants, yes.
I told you I was going to be easy on you, so thanks, Austin.
Yeah.
Thank you. No further lights. There's a motion and a second to approve. Roll call.
Palermo.
No.
Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Melton. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 4-3. Item 48, a resolution to approve the creation of the North Saddle Creek Business Improvement Area Board.
Public hearing and vote on number 48 is today. Proponents, please.
Hi there, Josh Hannum, 1410 North Saddle Creek. I'm here to hopefully you guys approve this resolution to create a board to explore opportunity to bring in a BID district for North Saddle Creek.
Great, thank you. Other proponents on number 48 today?
Hi, Eric Jansek, Jansek Florist on 49th and Charles. I'm for it. I'd like to see the neighborhood cleaned up. We've been there since 1967, over 55 years. Nothing's ever been done, and it's about time someone does something. I've seen businesses come and go, and if no one does anything now, I don't know when someone's going to do something. It's going to be another 55 more years. I don't know, but definitely for it. I've spent a lot of money on advertising and over the years, and why not put it back into our neighborhood? I'd like to see it grow and new businesses come in. Thanks.
Thank you. Other proponents today?
Hi, I'm Steve Pham, PKP Screen Printing on 1415 North Saddle Creek, and I am also for it too, just the reasons he gave, and yep, I think I'll bring a lot to the neighborhood, the block, and yep, I think it's going to be a good thing. So,
Thank you. Any other proponents that want to speak?
Hi, Dina Hannum, 1416 North Saddle Creek at Hey J Coffee. I'm also for it. I think the neighborhood's a cute little area and could really do well with some extra growth and get some more businesses in there and excitement for the neighborhood and everybody else around that area.
Thank you. Any other proponents? While he's on the way down, I'll also just note we had a letter of support submitted by Jeff and Molly Clement Jenkins of 1717 Country Club Ave in support of this item today, too.
I'm Don Janisak. I do the florist that my son was just up here with. I've been in that area for many years and seen some improvements, but definitely not enough. I would like to do something with our florist, but I'm not spending any amount of money to build that place unless we start doing something to the area. The area is always neglected. We did Dundee, which is just up the street. We're not considered part of Dundee. We do Benson. That we're not considered Benson, except everybody kind of includes us in there, but we're always been the exception. We're not going to do anything for you guys. You guys are different. We've got signs in our thing, in our roads. Benson district is this way. Dundee's district is that way. What happened to us? We don't exist unless we start improving the area and do things for it. We have a bunch of homeless people all the time down there. We got to get rid of those people. We got to get rid of some of the places that they stay. And until we improve it, we're going to keep getting those people. We have to do something for the area and also for the businesses to prosper even better than when we are. Some of them aren't doing so well, but still, we got to get something up in that area done. Thank you.
Thank you. Other proponents today? Seeing none, any opponents?
Larry Storr, 5015 Lafayette Avenue, Omaha 68132. I live pretty close to this area and I'm through it 2 or 3 times a day. I do agree something needs to be done with that area, but I disagree with how we do things. And I'd like to explain why. I don't want to upset anybody back here, but there's probably a few business owners and small homeowners that are going to lose out here. There's not enough transparency in this process. And let me say why. I've been watching and listening for quite a few years. What's going to happen is you guys will come back next week with an amendment and we can't talk about it because it's already said and done. And you'll go into your long explanations next week or the week after that if you don't postpone it. I'll give you an example. You might call me out of order. But this last item on the Preston Love Building, the language used in the resolutions from one week to another changed. After the public hearing, it changed. And it went from the person wanted to acquire a building to the person it was sold. But what was it sold to and by? It turns out it was ARPA funds, ARPA money, not his money. This building was probably a city building. I don't know if Preston Love Jr. had any interest in it or not. But obviously, he did not buy this building.
So Larry,
You gave the building to him with
number 48.
ARPA funds. So you just need to be honest. Now, don't come back next week with long dissertations about, oh, we decided to change it, and here's the amendment, and you don't get to vote because the hearing was last week. That's not fair. We have traffic through that area. And what is true about that area is around the bowling alley and those dilapidated apartment buildings, you're probably after those. But there's a lot of immigrants, a lot of homeless, yes. But it's not because that it's not cleaned up right around Saddle Creek. That doesn't give you a license to go clear up Country Club, past the donut. Have you really seen people that live in that area and have a few small businesses? They're not down here, are they? They probably don't even know this is happening. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other opponents today?
I'm Tim Peffer. I live at 1633 Country Club Avenue. I own Sergeant Peffer's Italian, and I've owned it for about 35 years now. And the gentleman that spoke, and Don, it's a terribly dilapidated neighborhood. You go walk into Sergeant Peffer's, which is it's average fast food place. You look across the street, you see coiled wire on fences around the antique place, which was put up by the original owner of the car washes, but he's not here today. They put up this looks like Gitmo. You have a laundromat that's not open, I don't believe, or it's always people are either excrementing in there or whatever. You have the apartments that are terrible up the street. You know they are. And you've heard, this isn't the first time you've heard about them. This goes clear back when Suttle was mayor. The amount of immigrants and stuff that are put into these apartments and the amount of people, it's just terrible. You've got to be able to do something with that. I don't know that I'm either for or against this proposition. I had surgery on my foot, and I was unable for 6 months to get around, so I wasn't able to make the first meeting. I need more explanation, and I need more maps. If the city's just going to come in and put up a little sign that says Metcalf Park area, we already have one of those, and put some plants in the area, we don't, and then increase taxes. We don't want that. The business can do that themselves. I guess I just need to see more in detail what's going to happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other opponents today? Seeing none, I'm going to close public hearing. I see there is a light on, but I will address this initially first, if that's all right, as this is my district. And I worked on this project with the property owners here today. I appreciate all the comments that were just made, and I agree with all of them. This area has so much potential and so much character to it as a neighborhood business district. Has some successful, definitely higher than average businesses, including Sergeant Peffer's and the Homie and Janice Six Florist, and so many staples to the neighborhood. But always could just benefit from additional public infrastructure investment. And I've always thought that in my time on the council, much like we did with Dundee and Benson, as Mr. Janicek noted, that just a little bit more public investment in this area can make a huge difference for the success of this business district, the businesses themselves, and of course the surrounding neighborhood. So that's what we're here to talk about today in number 48. Mr. Indemash and I had an informational meeting with property owners about the BID process and what that would entail. And what it does entail is just this first step today that would indicate interest in creating a business improvement district. and allows the mayor then to proceed with appointing a board from property owners within the district to then create a very detailed plan that would be discussed by the property owners themselves, formed by the property owners themselves, and hopefully generate some good consensus on however it is you want to design your program of work to include the assessment formula, the budget, what items you think are important, and how you want to spend that money to benefit the area. And only then would that come back to the city council later for approval. And if approved, only at that point is a BID actually in effect and do those things actually happen. So I agree with everything that was just said about more detail being needed, more discussion being needed. That's why we're taking this first step today, I hope. And if we do, I think the benefits are great. This council did approve funding to design, together with all of you and the surrounding neighborhood, what some of those public improvements could be. And we would do that in public meetings in 2023 and have that designed quite specifically. There's been a commitment by the city that should a BID be formed here, that there is $300,000 in capital funding from the city to help construct whatever it is we decide should be constructed there together with the BID. And I believe strongly philanthropy is ready to participate in that as well, just like they did in projects in Dundee and Benson, but also only if there's a BID there to participate and to help maintain that over time. And then lastly, I think a huge opportunity for all business improvement districts in the city that have census tracts on the eastern part of the city is $1 million in grant funding that'll be available to BIDs for projects of their choosing in a competitive grant format to the city to complement all the things we're talking about getting done here today. And should this be in formation by the end of the year, it's certainly eligible for those funds too. So I see nothing but upside to take this first step here today and hopefully take advantage of all those things that I think really could benefit the area and the business district itself. Saying that, I see Mr. Harding's light is on. You're recognized.
Thanks, Mr. President. I too wanted to talk a little bit about this being the first step in the process, but also seeing that if it's eventually decided to go forward, the possible potential that could the ownership or the owners and the neighborhood could benefit from is pointed out. Benson's got a BID, Dundee. We're forming one, I believe, in other districts as well too, and I've got one out in Elkhorn. And seeing the benefit of those, I think is really help establish and kind of shore up those neighborhoods and accomplish some of the goals that were stated here today. One just kind of quick comment. Looks like Tim left the room, but I wanted to disagree with one thing he said when he did say that Sergeant Pepper's is not your average fast food restaurant, and I would wholeheartedly disagree with that. It's one of the best places in Omaha, and I'm sorry he's not here to hear that.
In particular, the chicken salad. No further lights. Is there a motion? Motion and a second. Roll call.
Palermo. Yes. Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Melton. Mr. President.
Yes.
Item 48 is approved 7-0. Item 49, a resolution to approve an amendment to the agreement with Cox Contracting Company in the amount of $392,897.20 for additional demolition services for the main library.
Public hearing and vote on number 49 is today. First, we'll hear from proponents, and I'll note that Laura Marlene is by Zoom for questions if needed.
Jacqueline Morrison, Mayor's Office. I am here for any questions you may have.
Thank you. Any other proponents that want to speak today? Seeing none, any opponents?
Hello, my name is Sarah Johnson. I'm at 2316 North 52nd Street, which is a charming home and country club, which will be for sale in the spring because I'm moving. So this is probably the last time I will grace you with my presence. We're moving to a place that actually lines up better with our values. Anyway, so I understand today, number 49 is a resolution to increase the demolition budget To me, this is more of an item that kind of alludes to the public trust or the lack thereof in a lot of these processes. No one's here anymore to speak about this stuff because we've all become pretty disillusioned with a lot of these processes. I'm noticing this is a resolution similar to a resolution last week about a bike lane that passed 6-0 and still was brushed away by the mayor. It's really becoming insulting to residents just trying to live here. Anyway, we'll stick to the library stuff. I do want to show one concern that I don't think has been brought up when it comes to the library demolition, and that is something I think is specifically important to point out, since we've recently heard from the mayor that she's 100% dedicated to other ways of getting around town. I don't have my phone on airplane mode. Last time I did this, my dad texted me. This is a picture of a bike lane in front of the library. This is about the library demolition budget, because I don't see anything about detours for bike infrastructure. And if we care about people trying to get around this city, around all of these amazing construction projects that, you know, arguably a lot of the city doesn't even want to see, the least you could do was budget in for folks just trying to get from A to B in the meantime. I think another just kind of continual issue that we hear a lot about from folks that testify or not involves communication. And I actually am going to rip off the organizers' names because I don't think that should be totally public knowledge, but people are sick of trying to get points across to you within these chambers. So there's actually a couple events coming up that I wanted to let everybody know about. Thursday at 5 o'clock at Dewey Park,
Sarah,
there's going to be a bike-in.
I agree with you on your points around the bike lane, obviously, but this is about the demolition of the library. We can stick to that topic on number 49, please.
Yeah, I think that basically I'm done trying to talk about stuff on the agenda because we've seen how little it matters time and time again. Like, y'all know I've been here for over a decade trying to get some of these points across to you, and it's actually turned out to be easier to move out of the state than to get anything done. So I will, you know, enjoy my bike ride home and try not to get hit in the meantime. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other opponents to number 49?
Hello, my name is Dewan Lamont Hayes, 1707 Park Avenue. I actually thought about coming as a proponent today because I thought it maybe would be interesting, but then I realized that looking at this, why do we have an RFP process? As far as I'm aware, a request for proposals is put out to different companies to be able to submit. Typically, we go with the lowest bid. So when Cox Contracting was selected, they were selected as the lowest bidder, about $600,000, approximately roughly $700,000 total. Yet now the mayor's coming back with an additional $392,000, almost $400,000. That then puts that bid above the highest bidder. And then they're subcontracting with one of the contractors who lost out on the bid. So say you're building a house and you need an addition and you bid on someone and you put some bids out and they come back to you with a certain number, and then a few weeks later they come with double that. Are you gonna pay that out of your pocket? No, you're not. So here we are now taking money, and then there was an amendment made just last night because originally this $392,000 was supposed to come from the general fund, and now it's coming specifically from the Library Facilities Capital Fund, which I was just at Willa Cather yesterday, and I've been to several of our other smaller libraries in town who desperately need attention. So now you're saying that we're going to take $392,000 from our Library Capital Fund to go to a demolition of a library that the people did not ask for? You know, I'm coming here with love because I genuinely appreciate every single one of you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. And I just hope you make a decision that you genuinely want to make and are willing to live with the consequences that come from them. Because this isn't just about a library, whether you care about it or not. It's not just about people who are houseless, whether you care about them or not. It's generally about the karma that you're breeding in the city and the culture that you're creating. And I just hope you're willing to live with those consequences as they move forward. You know, all of this money that we're spending on the demolition of a building that the city did own and that we gave away, we could have actually put into improving it and making it a place for everyone. Because now you're gonna have a tower that physically overshadows the park that was just built. Has anyone considered that? We're literally gonna be living in the shadow of Mutual of Omaha, who claims to be, which the mayor said, they have Omaha in the name. So do we, so does the Omaha tribe, but we don't seem to get any of the benefits or listen to. So it's quite concerning when Laura Marlane, even the executive director, is endorsing these things. Guys, we have an opportunity to do something really beautiful and bring our city together. People are struggling, and it's only gonna get harder. And you can choose to listen, but frankly, folks are gonna show up in a different way, and you're gonna have to answer. This is on record. So choose what side of history you wanna be on. You could say no to this, and we could actually do something different. I've said it several times, but it doesn't seem like you wanna listen to our people or have a real vision. Because what does Omaha wanna become as a city? Are we just a corporate playground for developers and Fortune 500s to stick their buildings wherever they want to and force us out of it? Because as far as I'm concerned, most of our public space has been sold off. Civic Auditorium site, Jean Leahy Mall is now managed by Mecca. Library is now under the control of Heritage Services. What is left for the public anymore? What are you here for if you can be bought and sold, just like the rest of them? And frankly, the mayor doesn't care about you. She's not interested in listening to you because she'll do the opposite. She'll veto anything you do. So we could actually stand with our constituents and with our citizens of Omaha to see our city be improved and no longer have to sit under this tyranny of decisions that are made without us, about us. And, you know, I think it's time to recall who we are. And that might just include our council and our mayor, because it seems to be one of the only options that we have to actually stand up for ourselves. You all voted in here during a pandemic when people were struggling and still not being able to get what they need. And I think it's time for us to genuinely recall so we can get this together. So, you know, like I said, do what you want to do. And I hope you're doing it because you believe in it, not because someone told you you had to. And hopefully you can live with that. Thanks.
Thank you. Other opponents to number 49?
Excuse me, Lois, I was here first. Excuse me, Lois.
Hey, guys.
Luis Jimenez. Don't run in and jump in front of me.
One at a time is fine.
Okay.
No particular order.
Since he really wants it.
All right.
You want to get here earlier?
Go ahead.
Larry Storr, 5015 Lafayette Avenue, Omaha 68132. I'm glad that somebody else noticed what I noticed. All of a sudden, the price was doubled. My goodness, how does that happen? There's just not enough transparency, folks. You need a little bit more time with the public to understand it. 4 weeks ago, or whenever you started with the letters, is it time to start communicating with your citizens who elect you, who ask you to do a job? Not this far out in the process. We went across the river the other day, and oh my God, the library's already gone. And we haven't even finished voting on it yet. Next week, I won't get to say anything because you've already had the public hearing. But you'll come through with an amendment as a whole and change it again. And I don't know, we might find out that some of these projects are scrapped. Maybe the Crossroads is going to be scrapped. They're not doing much there. Is the library actually going to get finished when the cost keeps getting doubled? Or was that just a mistake? And the papers got switched. I think there was something I was following the other night. Maybe it was the Dana thing, but the language went from sale from acquire to sale, and then the whole amendment was replaced. But I haven't had time to read the second amendment that replaced the first one. So you've got us all confused, and we're really not in favor of any of this stuff when we don't understand it. He had a lot to say. And the other thing, is why can't you discuss it with us while we're here at the podium instead of waiting till the guy leaves? And then you discuss it about him and his comments. You've done that to me many times. I'm not afraid of you. I won't bite either. It would be nice to have a two-way conversation so I can understand why you disagree with me, because you obviously don't understand why I disagree with you. But your rules somehow say you can't do that. I don't know why that is, because under the Open Meetings Act, the citizens get to participate.
Larry, we're
And the
here to
First
make the
Amendment,
rules. We're here to
First
talk about the
Amendment
library,
also,
so
Mr.
keep your
Festerson.
comments
Thank
to
you.
number 49. All right, thank you. Luis.
You didn't call him out of order. I think he went over time.
Luis Jimenez, 2709 Dewey Avenue. I oppose this because it's inflammatory. They're inflating the price. Over the course of a few years, I've seen how developers do this. They come in and work with public bodies, and then after a while they inflate the prices, especially if it gets bogged down, which the developer should understand. This is a public project, or they're working with a public entity, so there's a lot more people involved than a private development. And so I'm opposed to the $400,000 inflation. You might, put this on a layover, and they'll come back and say, well, there's another 100,000 because you waited to spend the money. That's what happens. It's punitive, even though they're dealing with a public setup. I would recommend that you not spend public funds on this. Have the developer spend the $400,000 on this for the demolition, and then they can recoup it when they're spending the last of their capital stack. They can do like some more fundraising towards the end. It's a very small amount, $400,000, compared to the overall project. Thank you.
Thank you. Other opponents to number 49?
Just want to check and make sure it's okay with Larry if I talk. Okay. Aaron Feitstinger, here in my personal capacity, just as a lover of the library, 2719 North 49th Avenue. I taught a college class this last semester about how the city works and how local politics impacts the daily lives of citizens. A lot of people sitting up here have been gracious enough to share their passion and experience with those students. And at the end of the semester, I asked my students to reflect on what they learned about how the city works and how the city interacts with its citizens. And the overwhelming majority responded that a lack of communication and clear communication and transparency about what's going on is an issue that, if they were staying in Omaha, is something that they would work on fixing. So to that end, I'd like, as a citizen, to just have a very clear explanation as to why this all needs to happen so quickly. I've sat in pre-council meetings and council meetings, and I'm not sure that I fully understand why the rush to do things. It seems like that's the reason for these costs to be rising over and over again. Could be wrong. I'm sure Jacqueline will do a wonderful job of explaining this. And I think other folks would appreciate that answer too. And I'd also like an answer not only because I believe in what you all are doing and the power that you have and the possibility of using that power to make citizens' lives better, but because I have a daughter. I'm going to show you a cute picture to reward you for staying here all this time. Oh no, it didn't work. Thank you. You'll love it. Oh no, it's me. Good Lord. Like, helped someone with this last week, can't figure it out this week. So that's my daughter. She got her first library card last week, and she's wearing her favorite sparkle jacket, and she's with her best friend, Scamper the prairie dog, who she calls a squirrel and gives kisses to every time we go into the Benson Public Library. And she loves going to the library. We go every week. She checks out books that I really would prefer her not to. Like, she recently became obsessed with a book about naked mole rats, and that's just not what I want to read at night. But I'd love to be able to raise her in a city that values the same things that she values. And this entire process has made me incredibly sad and a little bit worried about if we'll be able to raise her in that city that likes and supports the things that she likes so far. But who knows? Maybe she'll get into an insurance job. But I appreciate your time, and thanks for being here.
Thank you. Other opponents to number 49? Seeing none, public hearings closed. Ms. Johnson, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Oh, thank you, Jackie. I just want to bring our attention back to this resolution. It is an amendment to the agreement with Cox Contracting Company in the amount of $392,897.20. I also would like to bring this to my colleagues' attention that the current location of the library that we're talking about is in my district. And so I would like to reiterate the question that we had during the city briefing this morning, city council briefing, whereby the question that I presented to you, Jackie, was why would we as a city put ourselves in a position where we did not know the design of the builder or the owner prior to submitting the original bid for demolition, thereby eliminating the need for this change order as a whole?
Sure. Can I give some context to that question? I know that we were there this morning, but I don't know that everybody else was there. So this is a change order that has come. It is not an increase that Cox requested from the original RFP. It is a request or change order that the city asked of Cox to do additional work. And so this is for additional work. At the time that the RFP went out, and I just checked the date, it looks like we sent it out in April, which means we were going to be would have been doing the work and putting it together in March to send it out in April. We did not know what the design was going to be of the building that's going up. So just so I'm catching up on where we are. One of the reasons we had to put out the RFP without knowing the full scope is to be able to secure a contractor. And so we knew that this work would happen in October of this year with the goal of getting the building down by December 31st. And so we had to move on an RFP to be able to secure someone to do the work at that time. So that was the reason for which we had to move on an RFP in order to secure someone to meet the deadline, or at least to work on our time frame of December 31st.
Thank you. Again, I'm a little bit concerned that there might be, although you provided all of that information, and I understand the why, but I'm a little bit concerned about there might be an unfair advantage to the other bidders because all these things were not known from the front end, and therefore our responsibility as leaders and the responsibility as far as ensuring that money is spent in a good, responsible way, I feel some concern about that in terms of us moving the needle rather quickly. It also, that's my number one concern. My number two concern is the transparency, the level of transparency of all of these moves that we've had since the onset of the decision to tear down the library. A lot of discussion in District 2 has gone on regarding transparency, regarding the move of the library and considerations as to where individuals that were used to coming to this location for services have had to change and all of that. So there's been, and then there's this longevity of the library being downtown as a whole. And it's caused a lot of angst in the community as we move forward to a greater picture, such as Mutual of Omaha and the beautiful skyscraper that we expect to see at the end of the day. So that's my second reason for my concerns. Then I really don't agree with this amendment that we are going to take funds from the library to take care of this additional expense. That will cause a stressful situation on the library. I'm concerned about it, you know, what the outcome of what that might look to in terms of their budget. That hasn't been fully talked about or vetted out. So I would move that I would stand in support of constituents such as Ricky Fulton, Cheryl Weston, Dewan Haynes. I move that we not approve this.
Is there a motion on the floor, or am
There is
I
a motion.
able to respond to the question?
There is a motion on the floor.
Okay.
Ms. Johnson, it's your floor if you want her to respond or not.
Yes, I would love for you to respond.
Okay, so I wrote down a couple of points that I think that you wanted answers to. One was, was this fair to other bidders? And so just wanted to be clear that we did receive other bids as it relates to the RFP. Some of them were priced higher, but none of those bids and those prices included this additional work. And so even if we had gone with one of those bidders who had bid more, we would still be back before you asking for an amendment to the contract for this additional work. And so we went with the lowest bidder who was going to do the work at that time that they knew what the scope was. The other thing I just want to be clear on is when we were looking at, and the majority of this work is the removal of the piles. And so we did reach out to several companies to get quotes and estimates. And so what's before you is actually the lowest estimate that we received for the additional work. And so there was fairness, I believe, in the entire process, and that we did get several quotes to make sure that we were going with something that was competitive and making sure we were being very responsible with that particular bid. And so I think with all of those costs, we were, the other, I guess, amendment is to the retaining wall, and that we did allow Cox to bid that. But if you look at what the cost of the retaining wall is and what his original bid was, we're still below most of the other bids that came in.
And then were you going
Oh.
to address the library? I'm just asking.
Yes. So I saw, so one of the things was the amendment with the funds coming, where the funds are coming from. I know this was brought up, and just in full transparency, I was the one who made the mistake of putting the general fund down. It was never the general fund. I typed, when I was preparing the document, I didn't catch it, so that's on me. I'll take that. I don't believe, and Steve Curtis could speak more to this, that this is impacting the library's budget. If you look at our capital improvement plan, I was looked at it earlier today. The library's capital improvements that they have, or that we've been working for, are documented in our capital improvement plan, and this additional expense is not taking away anything from what's already allocated for them in that plan. The other thing I think you spoke about was the level of transparency. I can't speak for this entire process, but I know that the library's website, they have continued to update people about what's going on with the move. I know that the mayor's office recently put out a press release to the press letting everyone know what the timelines were going to be for the move and what we were going to be doing. So since I've been here, or at least what I've understood, is that there have been channels for people to receive that information or find it if they were looking for it.
Thank you, and I appreciate you offering all of that information. But again, this is something that is happening directly in District 2. And as the representative, I have to look at and listen to those representatives in the district that are speaking out loudly about the transparency, about all of the movement surrounding the library closing. And so I have to stand with those constituents to reject this resolution. So I would have to support that.
Understood. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. There is a motion to deny on the floor, which will die without a second if that does not happen here shortly. Mr. Harding, you're recognized.
Just going to ask that, before I make my comments, I mean, can we allow for the time to see if there's a second?
Is there a second to that motion? Seeing none, that motion has now died. Mr.
All
Harding,
right,
the floor is
thank you.
yours.
Thank you. I'll start out then by making a motion to approve. And then I'll, Jackie, if you wouldn't mind, I think some points are important to reiterate. And as we discussed this morning, and I think you taking a step back, or at least to give a little background on it, is helpful to know, is that, again, when the RFP was issued, the design was not completed, which includes a parking garage underneath it that the city's going to own. So we're going to be it's a partnership. But the RFP that went out for all the bidders that responded did not include this work that's included in the change order that the city has requested, correct?
That's correct. And if you want me to elaborate, I can.
Please.
Sure. So when the initial RFP went out, we were not aware of what the complete demolition would be needed. And so what I mean by that is there are approximately, and we don't know the exact number, but between 320 to 370 pilings located under that library. And what that is, my understanding, there's still tubes that are filled with concrete and they provide a type of foundation. When the RFP went out, we did not know, out of the over 300 that we had, how many would need to come up to fit the new design that would be coming. Once we were aware, or the designers were far enough along in the design of the new building, they then came back to us and let us know which of those 300 plus would need to come out. We settled on approximately 75, and the amendment before you has some wiggle room for about an additional 10. And the reason for which we needed that wiggle room is we have some of the drawings from when the library was first built, but we're not certain if those drawings that we have, the design fits what the as-built is. And so it's possible that some may be a little bit over to the left or over to the right, or not as deep. And so this is our best estimate based on the design that we have from over 50 years, I believe it's over 50 years ago, but then also with the current design plans we have for the building. Well, we don't personally have it, but what we've been informed for the new building that will go up.
Okay. And then one thing I'll say, I'd prefer the term contingency fund rather than wiggle room, but
sure. That's fine.
But I also want to say that, and I'm glad you brought the point up about how many of the pilings are in there now, because if we had to remove every single one of them, and the city has actually, in the past, we have banked, if you will, land for potential to suit our, so that we could go out and potentially go after businesses to relocate and have a shovel-ready site. If we were in that situation today, we would have to remove all of those. So by working with the potential, for the developer and then the potential user of that, and again with our city personnel for the garage, I think we're actually going to end up saving money in the long run. But also, I wanted to tie that back to the original RFP, and that whatever additional work that's included in this change order would have been added onto any other bidder in the initial, I'll call it the initial round, or the initial response. so that we're not, we're not awarding to Cox after the fact that others had bid on, so that it got over what others' initial bids were, because it didn't include that work for any of them, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Then I wanted to talk a little bit about the budget. So really, and this does not affect the library's budget in any way.
No.
Right. So, and then the account then, if you will, or the holding fund, which is the library facilities capital fund, really is kind of a holding place or a holding fund, which will eventually be, and maybe Mr. Curtis can weigh in on this, but then with the sale of the bonds, that's how that gets replenished, I believe.
I think Mr. Curtis has some thoughts on that.
Steve Curtis, City Finance. Two things about the costs of these various library items that are being considered. One is, you are correct that the Library Facilities Capital Organization is just a holding account. Those funds will actually be reimbursed by redevelopment bonds. So it has nothing to do with the library's actual operating budget. Also, we've let any of the library staff know that to the extent they experience anything in 2022, or for that matter in 23, that's outside of what we expected when we did their budget, we'll work hard within the city's budget to figure out how to not hold them accountable for those expenses.
And then, Mr. Curtis, as long as you're there, what was the initial anticipated bid or anticipated price for this work? I think we're still, even with this change order, we're still well underneath what the original engineer's estimate was to be for this for the demolition.
That's correct. We had ballparked $3 to $5 million for this, based on our work at the civic site and some inflation. And the initial bid of $600,000 and change was quite a bit less than anything we had anticipated.
And then with this, even with this additional work and the change order, we're still basically a little under $1 million with quick math, but still, again, we're well underneath what the initial engineer's estimate was.
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks, Jackie.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Melton, you're recognized.
Thank you. And I just want to also note, it was on page 14 of the attachment to 54, the original document from that was signed in June by the mayor. It states that it comes out of the library facilities capital fund, which we know will be reimbursed with the redevelopment bonds that'll be sold to pay for the project. So that wasn't changed. That's how the original one was out of there. But I understand. Thank you for. We all make mistakes, especially when you're typing, and it's just the general fund. So you're allowed to make a mistake every now and then. And I also note on there, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of the bids. In fact, the highest bid was $2.4 million for the original work that Cox came in at $678,000 for. So I think there was a comment made that this is now more than all of the other bids, which actually it's not. There was only one other bid that was at $892, but that was just for the original work. All of those other bidders would still charge us additional work or additional money for the additional work. And in fact, they were so much higher, my guess would be they would have charged us a lot more for the additional work as well. I mean, that would just be the logical thing. The other thing, and correct me if I'm wrong, or if I see Ms. Taylor back there, we actually have a contract that we've already entered into with Mutual, and we are to give them the land, and it has to be really kind of what's called a clean slate. So we're required to actually remove these pilings that need to be removed as part of the contract.
You want to speak?
Jennifer, do you want to, sorry, maybe I should ask you this question.
Sure. Jennifer Taylor, City Law Department. We do have an obligation in the existing redevelopment agreement with Mutual of Omaha to deliver the site. Actually, it requires us to deliver the site as a whole. We're not required to backfill it, but we are required to at least leave the hole in a specific condition that enables them to build their project.
So I know just a minute ago there was an attempt to deny this, if we were to deny this work, so if we deny this change order, we still have to complete the work. If we don't complete the work, we'd be in violation of the agreement. So then they would probably do the work themselves, have to rebid it, and then they'd charge the city. And not only will we get charged for that work, probably legal fees and penalties as well for violating the agreement. I mean, we're lawyers. When you violate the contract, I mean, they're not just going to say, oh, okay. I mean, we've already have an agreement and we're required to do the work. So whether we like it or not, or whether we like how it's happened, we're already in that agreement.
And that's correct. And I would suggest there's one other issue is that there's an additional amount of time that goes along with removing these pilings. We are still able to meet the December 31st deadline with the contract from Cox and the additional pile removals. If we were to reject this contract today, we would not have the ability to meet that December 31st deadline. And so, you know, not only would we be opening ourselves up to the things that you suggested, but at that point, Mutual could suggest that we are in anticipatory breach of that contract and take action today.
And that's, so I believe, regardless of what anybody's opinion is, we actually have a responsibility as a city council to fulfill an agreement that we've already voted on, that we already passed. We now have actually an obligation to fulfill that agreement.
It is the discretion of the council, but there are consequences to any decision made here.
And those consequences, I'm going to guess, would be a heck of a lot more expensive than this $380,000.
Very possibly so.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Mr. Bagley, you're recognized.
Thanks, Mr. President. I had a question for Mr. Curtis, please.
Steve Curtis, City Finance.
Steve, you had mentioned, I just want to be clear on this, if you could clear the air. The funds are funds being shifted from the demolition? That's not being shifted away from when Erin mentioned earlier, she takes her daughter to the Benson Library, or if people in my district go to Willa-Cather or elsewhere. Are people going to see the library's hours change or the number of employees changed because of this?
No.
Okay, thank you. Jackie, we talked this morning, you went through a lot of information, and for somebody that doesn't bat 1,000 either, you're forgiven for your error.
Thank you.
You mentioned there's 320 to 370 of these pilings, and this additional budgeted amount is accounting for what we didn't know with, I think you said there were two different sets of plans from, was it 1975 when the library was built?
Yes. So I spoke to Mr. Stubbe about this, and my understanding is we don't know if as-built were required to be submitted for pilings in 1975. What we do know is we have a set of plans that indicate where the pilings should be and where we believe that they are. And so if everything was built to design, and likely it was, then 75 would be the number. If my understanding, and I'm not in construction, but if someone gets out there and they hit something and they're not able to put that piling there, or if there is a shift, then the pilings could have been shifted a bit one way or the other. But as far as our understanding, based on the designs that we have, it's approximately 75. And you asked a question earlier. I know you didn't ask it right now, but I got your answer. If we don't end up it is a time and material contract. So if we don't end up having to pull the full 85, we would not be expensed for those additional 10.
Okay, so if you didn't have those additional 10, potentially you would have to come back for the council later for the additional 10. So if I understood you correctly this morning, and I think I did, the additional 10 is built into this bid of the 300, and I'm making put my glasses on here, 392,897.20, correct?
That's correct. It is built in as a contingency.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Mr. Rowe, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to, we're throwing around a lot of numbers, and I actually have the paperwork from May when the bids were tabulated. We had a lump sum bid, an estimate, an engineer's estimate of $1.25 million to complete the demolition work. And when you add the original contract from Cox and add the change orders, we're at 1.107. So about $143,000 under the estimated cost is what we're going to pay. So I just want to get that out there. We're under what we expected. I was surprised back in May when that low number came, and I questioned it then. They're going to deconstruct the building rather than just bring a wrecking ball, I understand. And so that made some sense. And now with the explanation from the office as to the reason for the change order, I'm satisfied that we have the right number and that we're within our expectation.
Thank you. Mr. Palermo.
Thank you, Mr. President. I've listened to my colleagues. They've stole everything I was going to say, which is good for all of us time-wise. But make no mistake, the aggressive timeline that has surrounded this entire project has led to a lot of things, but not what we have in front of us today, I believe. We have a future home to the downtown library that now has a temporary location to that future home of the library, and there's been a lot of extra costs associated because of an aggressive timeline. But what we have in front of us today, for the first time, I will say, is not because of that. Because regardless, as we've heard from the different bids we have, it's still within the engineering bid specification of where we need to be. It's not coming from the library fund, thank God. But ultimately what we have, in its simplest form, is a redevelopment agreement that we've already heard from law between the City of Omaha and the Mutual of Omaha that we have to have this site ready. And we get to this point and we talk about this site, it's not forgetting of what's happened before us with the library move. But as we continue to look forward, we have to think of the other moving parts that are so critical and valuable to the city right now, like moving forward with the streetcar, because we know these two projects go hand in hand. So it is unfortunate that the city discovered these added an additional cost, but they're not because of this aggressive timeline. And I will stick by that. I do worry, and I brought it up in pre-council, that I worry there'll be more of this. But again, it will be from getting this site ready, which we have an agreement to, which we've already heard could possibly, on the legal end of it, cost us more than just getting this site ready, and we certainly don't want that. So this is outside the original scope of the work. I appreciate your work on this, being thrown into this like you had. I'm sure if who you replaced were here, they would have got a lot more questions, but the answers would have been the same. We have to get to this point. Here's what we have to deliver, and I'll be supporting this today. Thank you.
Thank you. There's no further lights. There's a motion and a second to approve. Roll call.
Palermo.
Yes.
Rowe. Yes. Bagley. Harding. Yes. Johnson. No. Melton.
Yes.
Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 6-1. Item 50, an ordinance to acquire private property for the construction of the Copper Creek Interceptor Sewer Repair Project.
Public hearing on number 50 is today. Proponents, please. Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing's closed.
Item 51, an ordinance to acquire private property for the 6th and Leavenworth Grit Facility Improvements Project.
Public hearing on number 51 is today. Proponents, please. Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing's closed.
Item 52, an ordinance authorizing the issuance of purchase orders to Ready Mixed Concrete Company and Platte River Concrete Company for the purchase of concrete.
Public hearing on number 52 is today. Proponents, please. Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing's closed.
Item 53, an ordinance authorizing the issuance of a purchase order to DPC Industries, Inc. in the amount of $51,954 for the purchase of sodium hydroxide bulk shipments to be utilized by the Papillion Creek Water Resource Recovery Facility.
Public hearing on number 53 is today. Proponents, please. Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed.
Item 54, an ordinance to acquire additional vacant and improved properties located in the Builders District as listed on the agenda.
Public hearing on number 54 is today. Proponents, please. Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed.
Non-action items, items 55 through 84, do not require public hearing or city council consideration at this meeting, but will be placed on a future agenda for public hearing and your vote. The reason for non-action is noted after the item on the agenda, as well as the date the item is expected to appear on agenda for consideration.
Motion to adjourn. Second, roll call.
Palermo.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Melton. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0. Meeting is adjourned at 4:10.